Are we expecting Scott, Chris, or do you hear anything?
We should be good to go.
That's right there.
Yep.
Really? Oh, there he is. Hey, Scott, how are you? There's your smiling face. All right. All right, it's 7:30. Let's begin the first meeting of 2021. How exciting. All right, good evening and welcome. Oh, sorry, Michelle, we're good? Sorry.
Come on.
All right, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the January 6th, 2021 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Stephen Spur, and I'm chairman of the Summit Zoning Board. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. This meeting is being conducted virtually via video conferencing in lieu of meeting in the council chamber at Summit City Hall in Summit, New Jersey. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page. In addition, members of the public can view and participate in the meeting by following the link provided on the agenda. Members of the public may also submit written comments and questions to the zoning board secretary in advance of the meeting to be read aloud during the meeting. Such written comments shall not be considered testimonial and shall not be considered by the board in its determination on any application. Individuals wishing to provide testimony as to any application must participate virtually with both audio and video enabled. Andy Ball is the zoning board's attorney. He will advise the board members on matters of law and is the key interface with an applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Chris Nicola is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. Mr. Nicola works with applicants on getting their applications together, planning our agendas, keeping our meeting minutes. Mr. Nicola also does not vote on the applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Some applications require 5 affirmative votes to be approved. You'll be told which majority will be required before we begin our deliberations. Mr. Nicola, will you please call the roll of the members?
Sure. Mr. Spur?
Here.
Ms. Newell?
Here.
Mr. Yuko?
Here.
Mr. Steiner?
Here.
Mullen?
Here.
Ms. Schwartzstein is excused. Mr. Millay?
Here.
Mr. Loikitz?
Here.
And Ms. Toth.
Here.
And for the record, Andy Ball is here. We have a quorum. We can proceed.
Wonderful. We generally hear the cases in the order they are listed on the agenda. We try to have each hearing last no more than 30 minutes, but we do understand that some cases are too complex to be heard in that time frame. Each hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once the board members and the board professionals are done with their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. This is not the time to tell us what you think about this case. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Before you ask your questions, we need to know who you are and where you live. It is important that our court reporter be able to keep a clear and accurate public record. Please state your name before speaking or asking a question, and please do not talk over each other. This is even more important under the current circumstances. After all witnesses have been heard, members of the audience have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time, you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. Then the public hearing is closed, and we go into executive session where the board members discuss the case and vote. You'll be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in the discussion. Most applications are heard and decided in the same evening. If a case requires additional information or testimony that cannot be presented tonight, we will carry your case to another date and it will not be decided tonight. Krista Anderson, the city zoning officer, has asked that I remind all applicants that they must read carefully the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and to pay particular attention to the conditions contained in the resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all conditions in a resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, as it will cause extra work for city zoning staff. The resolutions documenting the board's decision will normally be available 1 month after we decide the case. When I call your name, please tell me how many witnesses you have and whether you think you can complete your case within 30 minutes. First on the agenda this evening under public hearings will be William and Kimberly Artemenko, 19 Badeau.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Hello, William. And are you represented by an attorney or have any witnesses with you this evening?
So we have our architect, Jack Kelly, and surveyor, Andrew Clark.
Okay, excellent. Second on the agenda is Daryl and Vicky Bodwin, 33 Aubrey Street. Daryl, there's Daryl. Hi, Daryl. You're on mute.
Sorry. Hi. I have my architect with me, Steve Majowski.
Okay. Any other witnesses?
No.
Okay, thank you. And then third on the agenda is Carl and Sunsia Wallen, 66 Fernwood.
Yes, that's right. I'm here.
Hello, Carl.
Hello. I also have our engineer, Kathy Muller, on the call today.
All right, excellent. Before we proceed with the applications, we have a little administrative work to do. We'll reorganize as well as complete our professional appointments. So if you'll applicants just bear with us for a few moments here and we'll get you all set and then we'll begin that portion of the agenda. So first under the reorganization, jumping right into it, we'll take nominations for chair if you so choose to throw me to the curb. Are there any nominations? Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, I would submit to the board that we should stay with the leadership team we currently have and would be happy to, I don't know if you want to do them together or separately, but nominate both you and our Vice Chair Liz to continue for 2021.
Let's do them separately. Thank you, Mr. Steiner. I appreciate your nomination. Any other nominations for chair? All right, don't all jump up at once. All right, do we have a second?
Need a second.
Yep, do we have a second for Mr. Spur?
Second.
All right, thank you. All right, Chris, do we need a roll call on this or what?
Andy, what's best, roll call or voice vote?
Yeah, you can go ahead with roll call.
Okay. All right. Ms. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
And Ms. Toth?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll now entertain nominations for vice chair. Joe, you had a vice chair nomination?
I'll renew my my recommendation that we stay with the same leadership team and give Liz another chance.
Excellent. Any other nominations for vice chair? Do we have a second for Ms. Newell to continue her good work here on the board?
Second.
Thank you. And then Chris, we can continue with the vote.
Sure. Chairman Spur?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Malay? Mr. Malay?
On mute.
Oh, you're back on mute now.
I guess we'll take that as a yes. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Loikitz?
Congratulations, Liz. All right.
And you too, Steve.
Thank you. And then our third member of the team here is our secretary. Do we have any nominations for secretary? If not, I'll gladly nominate.
I
Chris
thought he's automatic.
No,
Isn't he by appointment?
Yeah.
Well, we want to formally vote him in as part of the leadership of the board.
I nominate Chris Nicola. I think he does an
Aye.
excellent job.
And I
I'll
second.
Second, okay.
I think everybody seconded that. Any other
He's a Jets
nominations?
fan, though.
All right. Any other nominations for secretary?
How about Steven Spur?
No, thank you. A decline. All right. I think we had our motion in our second. Chris, can you run us through the vote here?
Sure. Chairman Spur?
Yes, of course.
Vice Chairwoman Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Mullen?
Yes.
Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
And Ms. Toth?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Welcome back, Chris. Next on the agenda is professional appointments. The 3 professional appointments we'll be making is for board attorney, board engineer, and board planner. First up is board attorney, for which we've identified Davison, Eastman, Munoz, Paon. That's a law firm represented in this case by Mr. Andrew Ball. So I would motion for us to approve Mr. Ball as our attorney for this year. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Chris, run us through the vote.
Chairman Spur,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
and Ms. Toth.
Yes.
Did you get Tom Yuko?
Yes.
Said yes, I think.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that.
No, I accidentally jumped over you and then had to circle back to you. So sorry, Joe.
All right, welcome Andy formally.
Thank you all. And I just wanted to say I'm having a little bit of sound issues. I'm just going to leave very quickly and come back, but you can go ahead with the administrative appointments.
All right, thanks, Andy. The next board appointment we'll seek here is the board engineer, for which we've identified Mazer Engineering to continue their good work here for the zoning board. So we have a motion for Mazer to continue as our board engineer.
So moved.
Second, anyone?
Second.
A second, but I do have one question, which I'm going to raise only because they're no longer Mazer. And I understand there's a reason that we're doing it for Mazer, even though they're no longer Mazer. So Chris, if you want to explain that to the board so we don't, nobody who may have read in the newspaper that Mazer no longer exists at Collier will understand why we're voting the way we're voting.
Thank you. We're actually transitioning over to Colliers, so our name is still currently Mazer. And as of sometime in the first quarter, we're going to be known as Colliers Engineering and Design. So, but right now, for the time being, as I said, it is currently Mazer Engineering or Mazer Consulting.
So I think we've had our motion and our second. Chris, we'll have our vote.
Sure. Chairman Spur,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Toth.
Yes.
Excellent. Welcome back, Mr. Dower.
Thank you.
Finally, a third and final is Burgess Associates as the board planner. Do we have a motion to approve them as our board planner?
Motion to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Chris, with the vote?
Chairman Spur,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
and Ms. Toth.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Welcome back, board professionals. Got a big year ahead of us here. We're going to work you. But moving now to the public hearings, I'm going to turn this chair seat over to my able vice chair, Ms. Newell. I'm going to recuse from 19 Badeau, but welcome to 2021. Here we go.
Wonderful. Okay, let's see. Mr. How do you pronounce your name correctly?
Artemenko.
Artemenko, okay, because I will butcher that many times, I'm
okay.
sorry. Can you tell us a little bit about your project?
Sure. First, just want to thank all of you for taking the
Jump
time
in
to
and
review.
swear you in first. Sorry to cut in.
Thank you.
Testifying, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And please state your name, spell your last name, please.
William Artemenko, Artemenko.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. See, I forgot already. If you can continue telling us about your project.
Great. Well, first, just wanted to say thanks for taking the time. First of all, just to volunteer for the board, but also to take the time to review our application. My wife, Casey, and I moved to Summit from New York City 7.5 years ago when we had newborn twins. We have an affection for old homes and sought one out that we could grow into. We now have 4 children, the 7-year-old boy-girl twins, and a 6-year-old boy and a 4-year-old boy. And as our family has grown, we realized we needed more living space on our first floor. We reluctantly considered moving and briefly listed our home last year, but ultimately realized that we love where we live, love our neighbors, and really want to try and stay and make it work. So we're asking the zoning board tonight to approve our plans to enlarge our kitchen and breakfast area and add a proper mudroom and family room. We also desire to make our yard more playable for our 4 children by removing half of our circular driveway, including the entrance on Edgemont, and reconfiguring the parking next to our garage. We've discussed our proposed plans at length with our neighbors whose properties border ours. Are supportive. It's our desire to raise our children in our current home, and we ask the board for its approval of our proposed renovation.
Great, thank you so much. So we'll go with, I guess, Mr. Kelly first.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and if you could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Jack Kelly, Kelly.
Thank you. And can you give a brief background in your experience and 3 boards aside from Summit that you've appeared before recently?
Sure. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey. I've been practicing in the city of Summit for 30 years. I have appeared before this board probably over 100 times in those 30 years, and at several other boards in Short Hills, Milburn, Chatham, Madison, and several other towns.
Thank you. And Ms. Vice Chairwoman, I imagine the board wants to accept his credentials at this point.
We do. Thank you. Welcome back, Mr. Kelly. Tell us about this project.
I wasn't here for a year, but I'm glad to be back. So the Artemenko's property is a corner lot. It's located in the R10 zone. And as a corner lot, it has 2 front yards and 2 side yards, and technically no rear yard by definition. Their house is a beautiful house that was constructed in 1894. It's a Dutch colonial style house, and it is already 3 stories, which contributes to some of the variances that I'm going to cover. Houses from this era tend to be have a more compact footprint, if you will, and they tend to be a little bit more vertical than houses that are constructed today. So in fact, the house has 7 bedrooms, but as Bill said earlier, what it's lacking really is informal living space on the first floor. Basically because it was built in a different era when people lived differently. So what we're proposing is a 1-story addition in the rear for an enlarged kitchen and a new family room and a mudroom. We're going to remove a previous addition that's in the rear of the house, which really has no character at all, and it's not compatible with the house at all. So we want to replace that with something that is more compatible and more architecturally correct. We're going to be using complementary materials to match the existing house, including stone, cedar siding, and we're going to be and the family room itself will have a gambrel roof style, which matches the main body of the house. The breakfast room design complements, I assume that all of you have the drawings in front of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't, okay. So the breakfast room design complements a sun porch that is on the front of their house that faces Bedaux. It has a flat roof, it has railings on top of the roof, and it has a lot of windows. So we're sort of mimicking that in the breakfast room design so that the breakfast room feels like another porch, and then the family room complements the main body of the house. So this addition causes 2 variances, both related to height. We need a variance for average building height, and we need a variance for maximum building height. Why? Because the house is already too tall. For average building height, the house is already 38.5 feet tall. As I said before, it has a full 3rd floor, and it also has a gambrel roof, which tends to be steeper than other types of roofs. The proposal would make that slightly worse, make that statistic slightly worse, and the average building height would become 39.5 feet. So that's an increase of 1 foot. I would argue that that's imperceptible to most people because, again, it's an average around the whole house. And so you can't see all four sides of the house at once. For the maximum building height, the maximum required in some, or allowed, I'm sorry, in Summit is 40 feet. That is measured from the highest point of the roof to the lowest point anywhere on the foundation. The current measurement is already 40 feet. And so due to the topography of the land on the Artemenko's property, the land in the rear falls slightly. And so that statistic gets slightly worse as well. And so we're seeking a variance for 42.3 feet. These are very small increases, really. It's a large piece of property. It's over 27,000 square feet. I think the house is set back quite a bit from both streets because it has the 2 front yards. And really, I would argue that these both variances are imperceptible. We're going to make some other improvements on the house beyond the addition. They are planning to re-roof the entire house with a cedar shingle roof, which would really enhance the look of the house. We're going to replace 90% of the windows, which we think, well, some are original and some we think are maybe 30 or 40 years old, but they need replacement. They're going to renovate 4 of the bathrooms in the house. And going back to that sun porch that faces Bordeaux, that was previously, they provided me with photos of the house over the years. That was an open porch. It was a screened porch. It was a 2-story porch. And then someone took the second porch off and then someone put in windows. But really it's still a porch. It's cold in the winter. It's not properly insulated. So we're going to improve that into a real finished room. So they're making a variety of improvements and quite an investment in the property. I'm just going to address one comment that Krista made in her comments. I just want to confirm that the addition is 1 story.
Okay.
Yes, it has a high-pitched roof. There is no second floor on top of the family room. Other than that, we comply with all of the other requirements. We don't exceed any of the coverages. We have plenty of room on the floor area ratio, and we meet all the setbacks. I would say that what we're proposing will be attractive. It's going to be well proportioned, and I think it's complementary to the house. And I think when the whole house has the new roof and everything is done, the whole house should feel like one house that was built at one time.
Thank you, Mr.
I can answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, and I just want to understand what you were saying about the total height of the house.
Sure.
And tell me if what I'm saying is right, that because the yard pitches down to the back, the foundation of the addition is going to be slightly below the foundation for the existing house, and it's that measurement to the top of the roof that accounts for the additional couple of feet.
Correct. The fact that the grade is lower in the rear exacerbates the average by 1 foot, and it exacerbates the maximum measurement, which is from highest to lowest, by 2 feet.
Okay, that's what I thought I understood you to say. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
I don't know, Mr. Kelly, if you want to answer, maybe the applicant wants to address this. The forester's report makes a couple points. They note that the plans recall for removal of 2 trees, but also he's recommending that a 25-inch diameter beech tree also be removed. He doesn't say why. I assume he has concerns about the condition of the tree. I'm just wondering if the applicant has any reactions to that.
I'm going to let Bill answer that because he walked around the property with Mr. Linson.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so the beech tree, it has been slowly dying from the top. And so we've had Bartlett come out at least twice, maybe 3 times to take off large limbs. In the snowstorm last winter, we had a large limb come down in the driveway. And so as much as I'd like to keep it, we both agreed, John and I, that it would probably need to be removed. And then one of those other trees, also a big limb came down in the storm that we had last August, I think. So yeah, he was in agreement, or thought he suggested it.
Okay. And his other comment is he's recommending that there be screening planted between the proposed wall and Edgemont Avenue. Is that something agreeable to you? And if so, I'd like to have a condition added that you submit plans to Mr. Linson for his approval.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about like moving some of the skip laurels that are along the driveway that goes out to Edgemont over there. We fully intend on covering that, just not only to provide some privacy and a buffer with our neighbors, but also to keep our kids in a yard and not have a fence, but have some shrubs and bushes and some small trees there. Because we have those wrap around Bedeau, and then to have that continue down Edgemont would work well.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Anyone else? I'm seeing none. Any questions from our board professionals?
I have nothing at this time.
Awesome. Any questions from the public, if there's anyone for this case? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. We'll go on to Mr. Clark.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Andrew Clark, C-L-A-R-K-E.
Thank you. And if you could briefly provide your background, experience, and 3 boards you've recently appeared before.
Certainly. I'm a licensed land surveyor and civil engineer in New Jersey with my license in good standing. I've been practicing for about 25 years in New Jersey. I have most recently and most frequently appeared in front of, aside from Summit, Chatham Borough, Chatham Township, Madison, Florham Park, and Milburn.
Thank you. And would the board like to accept Mr. Clark's credentials?
Accepts Mr. Clark's credentials.
Thank you.
Okay.
I can keep this pretty brief. It's a fairly straightforward application from an engineering standpoint. If it would help, I could share my screen and just indicate on the drawing that I submitted that you should all have.
Sure, thank you.
So I will share the screen. So on the left side of my plan, what I'm referring to is my lot grading plan dated October 5th, 2020. And on the left side, as I commonly do, I have the existing conditions depicted, and on the right side are the proposed conditions. Just to touch very briefly on the height question that had come up previously, I think Jack described it very well. It was reinforced by Mrs. Toth in her question. But the definition for height is comprised of, as I'm indicating here, there are a series of data points that I'm required to calculate that are within 6 feet of the foundation all the way around. So there's something like 23 data points in the existing condition that comprise the existing grade plane, which is we then compare to the roof peak for the height calculation. The proposed addition in the rear naturally extends those data points out into the rear yard. So as it slopes off, those data points are lower. So that's, I'm just reinforcing what has already been clarified, that is in essence, the reason for the height variance and that maximum height, both the average and the maximum. I sometimes refer to this as an academic variance because the roof itself is not raising. It's the grade plane and its definition that brings the grade plane down. So as Jack also pointed out, it's basically imperceptible in terms of the impact on passersby and neighbors in the area. The existing conditions, there's an existing wood deck and a slate patio in the back with a little connecting walk to the stone drive that comes off Edgemont. There are steep slopes on both sides of that drive, and in fact, it would be steep where the driveway is if the driveway wasn't there. There's also a larger section of steep slopes in the front yard, very little of which are we disturbing, but a little bit we are. So this slopes towards the roadway all the way around. The house sort of sits up from both roadways. In the proposed condition, the addition is being proposed at the rear of the dwelling. We have a terrace on the interior side, so it's not something that's visible from Edgemont or Bedeau. Then we're placing I consider a modest wall, maximum of 3 feet along Edgemont and parallel to Edgemont, just to level some of this area off in the back. We're of course removing the driveway and leveling this off just to get a little better, more usable yard area in that area by the house. Because right now you walk out, it just slopes down in both directions, and then there's a driveway, so it doesn't really feel like much of a yard. In the back right of the existing detached garage, there's sort of a fenced-in area with a chain link fence. It looks like, I think it may have at one time been an area where dogs were allowed to spend time outside and run in this fenced-in area. They're not intending to use it in that way at all, but instead going to take and create a parking area to the right of that garage with some pavement and a very modest wall just to manage the grade separation at the backside. Just should point out that Krista also, in addition to the average height and the overall maximum height, did indicate, which as much as I've really not quite memorized, but become very intimate with the ordinance, there's always something I miss. And in this case, Krista pointed out that this is a side yard along here, 2 fronts, and then the sides by definition are what comprise the yard requirements for a corner lot by your ordinance. And the driveway, the parking area is required to be within that setback. We're not quite within that setback. We're at about 9 feet at the back right corner and about 9.5 feet right where it touches the garage, where 12 would be required. So that's another variance that Krista's identified as being required. And then she has an even deeper dive in the ordinance on the next one, which is the number of parking spaces that are outside of a garaged area, which she's identifying also as a variance. And we don't dispute that at all. Krista's identified those 2 variances, which I don't think we initially, or I certainly didn't initially identify on my plan. Then of course she's identified the steep slopes disturbance, which is another variance. While I'm on Krista's memo, Krista also made a comment and made reference to the area, which I'll just indicate up here. There's an area, this area right along the wall, the little wall and the paved area we're placing. Krista's indicating that it would be recommended. She would like to recommend to the board that some landscaping be placed in there to buffer to the neighbors for the parking area. And I think we certainly would have no problem with that. I believe Mr. Artemenko could probably echo that, that would not be an issue. We'll provide some screening in that area. The other comments that I should address are from Mr. Dower, from his review memo dated December 29th, 2020. Many of his comments are echoing the facts of the case and the application. And there are a couple of points that where some clarification was requested. Item number 7, indicating that the application had indicated that stormwater management will be provided for the proposed addition. I did not see that language specifically, but that's fine. I actually had a supplemental separate conversation on the phone with Lori Toth in the engineering department, who said that, because of course, once application comes through the board process, if it's approved, she then is responsible to review it for engineering for issuing permits. She looked this over very briefly and said she would be interested in seeing some kind of stormwater management for this paved area that's right by the garage. So what I would suggest is that it may be better, rather than capturing the roof area of the addition, to have an inlet in the corner and a dry well that services that paved area in the back. I think she was mainly concerned with possible runoff being proximate to the neighbor from that paved area, and if it was unmanaged, might be potentially an issue. I think that's probably the best place for stormwater management in this case, and would be able to be done rather simply. And any overflow in a inundation, a heavy rain like we sometimes have now, would just overflow from that drain. And there is a stone swale. I did the job next door on lot 2 a number of years ago, and there's a stone swale that runs along the boundary just on the neighbor's property that would be a supplemental cutoff to anything that might escape our boundaries, and it carries that water out to the street. Obviously, this has been something that has historically affected the property, and that's why that swale's there. The other item is, number 8 indicates that in my site data chart, I indicate no change to the stone driveway. That's simply a mistake, obviously. We're removing a large section of the stone driveway. So that would be my testimony, and we'll of course revise the plan to reflect that more accurately. With regards to the steep slopes, I think that the changes that are being made in the vicinity of the steep slopes, there's again minor changes right along the addition in this area, but it's conservatively better to reflect that as disturbance rather than discover it later in the field, because there'll be some activity around that area. So we'll treat it as disturbance. But there's some regrading in this area, which is really the heart of the disturbance of the steep slopes. In my opinion, that's a net improvement in the condition, because it's going to flatten out that area for the effect of having a little better, more usable yard. And that also calms any stormwater runoff that's accelerated by the steep slope. So I think it's actually going to be a betterment in that case. And then we're replacing some of that stone driveway with landscaped areas. So I think in the end, the final analysis of that, it's going to be a net improvement and a significant improvement over the existing conditions. So there shouldn't be any problem or negative effect from approving a variance for the disturbance of those slopes. And I think that covers the main points of Mr. Dower's letter. I'd be happy to answer any questions either from Mr. Dower or the board members at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Any questions from the board? Seeing none.
Suppose I have one. I would just ask, I don't know if I missed it or if it wasn't noted yet, but I know you proposed the installation of a dry well. Do we have any idea what size dry well that would be?
Well, it's a little over 1,200 square feet. So it's probably, I'll work out the details of it, but it's probably a 6-foot diameter, 3-foot high tank with some stone around it.
And Mr. Dower, from the board standpoint, would that be acceptable?
That would be acceptable.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Dower, do you have any additional questions?
I think Mr. Clark picked up on every item. The only other question I did have on number 11, the paver block drainage swale, which is an existing and an older style drainage swale. I just would defer probably to Lori and the city engineer's office to see how they want that restored.
Right. Yeah. It should be noted on my plan, and that should be restored to a full height curb there, and any impact to that stone fringe that's there, because that road was recently rehabilitated and redone. So yeah, I would certainly have to note that on the plan and coordinate with Lori about how that should be best handled on the plan.
Okay, and as I noted in our letter, is the increase is de minimis. It's 8 square feet, which is probably the lowest increase we've ever had that I recall. And the fact that the applicant is proposing to put in drainage improvements in spite of that, I think is commendable.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions or comments from, or questions from the public? Nope, seeing none. Mr. and Mrs. Artemenko, would you like to, any final comments about your project?
I mean, just would reiterate that we want to raise our kids here, and you know, we have a terrific relationship with our neighbors, and you know, fully intend on you know, doing whatever we have to do to maintain the relationships we have with them. I spent a half hour walking the property with the Argentaries who live along the side yesterday, and yeah, I mean, this is where we want to stay. So we're gonna make it work for everybody.
Awesome, thank you. And it's so commendable for you to actually talking to the neighbors beforehand and taking the time to answer any questions. So that's kudos to you. So Mr. Ball, would you like to tell us the conditions?
Certainly. So first is the usual compliance with the conditions noted in the board engineer's report. Second, I have that the applicant shall submit plans for screening planted between the proposed wall and Edgemont Avenue to the city forester. Third, and the board can correct me if it doesn't think this is necessary, but that the applicant shall provide screening between the parking area and the adjacent, oh, I'm sorry, that's duplicate of the last one. The third and last one will be the applicant shall install a dry well and stormwater facilities in the expanded driveway area and shall submit revised plans to reflect that addition. And that's it.
Okay, awesome. Who would like to start deliberations?
I can. I've seen the, my main concern was the building height. However, seeing the slope of the ground, I think it is acceptable. The ridge did not, the height of the ridge did not increase. So I have no problem with that. And I think the project is commendable and I support it.
Thank you, Mr. Millay.
I believe the conditions that we've imposed, along with the obligations that the applicants have put into the project and the good things they're doing should satisfy any of the concerns that any of us have. And I think I can support this application without reservation.
Okay. Wonderful.
And also note the enhancement provided by the stormwater management, the addition of the dry well in the driveway.
Wonderful. Agreed. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. Give the motion to David and we'll give the second to Tom.
I'll second it.
It was close.
It was close.
All right. Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Millay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
and Vice Chairwoman Newell.
Yes. Good luck with your project and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome. All
Do
right.
you guys need us to stay on, or should we sign off? Or
Oh, you can have your evening back. It's all good. We have to stay.
okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Okay.
All right.
Mr.
Good job,
Spur,
Liz and
welcome
board.
back.
Quick work. All right. I like you guys. Let's move to the second application now. This is Daryl and Vicky Bodwin, 33 Aubrey Street. Mr. Bodwin, I see you there.
Yep.
We'll swear you in to start. Where's Andy? There's Andy.
Here I am. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And please state your name, spell your last name.
Daryl Bodwin, Bodewin.
Thank you.
Mr. Bodwin, if you'll just start us
For
off
the
with
record, can we find out who the telephone number is?
Sure.
Is it 908-219-4068 with no video?
Mysterious caller, will you identify yourself for Mr. Steiner?
They don't necessarily need to. It is a public meeting, so anyone can call in. If they decide they want to give testimony, they'll have to appear by video at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Fortunately, Mr. Steiner will have to live in mystery for the remainder of the meeting, it looks like.
I don't think that's accurate, but Andy, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
All right, Mr.
That's
Bodwin.
what the live stream is for.
All right, Mr. Bodwin, if you'd proceed with just a summary of your application. Thank you.
Sure. My wife and our family moved to Summit about 1.5 years ago. When we found this house, it fit our needs, and it was actually 5 bedrooms. We were looking for 4 bedrooms with some type of office space. This house was probably renovated, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. When they did the renovation, they built out the attic for additional 2, like a small bedroom and a small office. So in doing that, they really kind of minimized all the storage in the house. The other thing that was really appealing to us in the house was that it did have a 2-car garage, and it was set pretty far back, so it allowed for a very deep yard. But the garage was bought as is condition. Doesn't have power or anything to that, and it actually is in fairly bad condition. That something needs to be done with it. So after living here for a while, a couple of challenges we realized is that we really are struggling with storage in the house and just in the garage too, for the size of it. And that we knew we had to do something with the garage. And so in meeting with Steve, we talked about what the options on that were really to do, and we came up with the best idea so we didn't have to add additional outbuilding to the site, anything like that. We didn't want to mess up the line of sight. Is we thought, like, because the garage is so far back, that we could pull it forward and add a small storage area in the back of the garage, expanding the 2-car garage into deeper, so that would happen. It was really important that we wanted to maintain the line of sight, so the deep backyard, and kind of match the character of the building. I'll let Steve kind of go through more of the variance issues.
Thank you, Mr. Bodwin. Any questions? Mr. Dower, I don't know if you have any questions for the applicant, or you want to save your questions for the architect?
I'll save them for the architect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from members of the board for the applicant? Hearing and seeing none. Any questions from members of the public? I don't know if there's actually even anyone on the call for this case. Okay, we can proceed then to your architect, if you like. Mr. Ball, would you swear Mr. Majewski in?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Stephen Majewski, Majewski.
Thank you. And please briefly provide your background, experience, and 3 boards you've recently appeared before aside from Summit.
I'm a registered architect in the state of New Jersey. I've been registered, I believe, since 1983, practicing in another company for 22 years, and my own business now for 23 years, I believe. I am mostly residential architecture oriented, but I've worked on multiple commercial projects over the years, renovations, additions. I've recently appeared in Summit the last time before the board in 2019 for a zoning variance. And I've also appeared multiple times before the boards in Madison, Maplewood, Harding, and many more besides that, approximately 50 times before boards.
Thank you. Would the board like to accept Mr. Majewski's credentials?
We will. Welcome, Mr. Majewski.
Okay.
Hi.
So if you'd like to just share some testimony, and then we'll open it to, of course, the board and our own engineer for any further questions.
Yes, I believe Mr. Bodwin covered a lot of what we talked about the way he's came to buy the house and the description of the house. And I'll just say it a little bit to the description of the house initially. He's correct. The house built in approximately 1895, I believe. And if you looked at the house, you would not be able to tell that. It's been updated so many times and improved. It's hard to see the old Tudor home. I believe that's hidden inside. That's my guess due to the steep roofs. If you actually went inside the house, you see the house is very modern finished mostly, but very nice. And it is finished all the way through the 3rd floor. And with a bathroom and a couple bedrooms. So when I initially took the project, I made an inquiry to Summit to find out if there were any previous variances issued for any of that space in the house. And there were no variances required and none of record in recent times. I did further discover that the existing floor area ratio was in compliance, I believe, at the time. It's actually slightly under. So when we came to discuss the improvements to the garage, I observed the inside of the garage, and even though the outside looks improved, the inside is what's the deteriorated failing part more, because the outside has siding on it and improved trim, but it was really to hide sort of and improve just the exterior. So in talking to him about adding storage, I also investigated the existing basement, which occupies a very small portion of the footprint of the house. And I had a stoop to walk around, and it was damp, and it also unfinished and mostly a furnace, a water heater, that type of space. Also, to go down to the basement, you have to go from a stair that's at the rear family room, and it takes a dog leg turn to go down into the basement from the family room. You have to step down. There's no door direct from the outside to the stairway. You have to go through the inside of the house. So when looking at the zoning compliance, I found that the existing garage is very close to the back. It's about 1.7 feet, and the requirement is 4 feet at minimum to be for the accessory structure. And the house and the garage is basically at the maximum building coverage at this point. So it doesn't leave any space for improvement as far as adding to the building. I had conversations to confirm my zoning analysis with Krista Anderson and Chris Nicola about compliance, and I came to understand, and I think we agreed on what the violations were. In that discussion, there were some suggestions that maybe we should try to eliminate the rear yard setback variance, and we were proposing now to actually rebuild the garage complete rather than try to save unknown foundations. So we're eliminating the rear yard variance by moving to the garage to at least 4 feet. We kept the garage in the middle of the yard. There was discussion about moving it slightly one way or the other, but all the paving that goes to the garage, we're trying to preserve that and basically keep the way the lot functions at this point. We're not increasing the height of the garage. We're intending to basically keep it the same height, the same roof pitch, and just make it longer. Now, when we came to analyze the floor area ratio, what we found was, even though we have a 2-car garage on this lot, you only get a variance, you only get FAR relief for a 1-car garage. So asking the client to diminish, to reduce it to a 1-car garage and keep storage would actually diminish value that they have that exists on the lot at this point. And we felt that it's not a good thing for this homeowner or any other future homeowner. Having 2-car garage in this location is a great asset, and we felt that adding to it the way we are is a significant improvement. It gets outside storage building is now sort of part of the garage instead of putting a separate shed, and we feel that making it a 1 building is a better improvement to the lot and to the improve the zoning or keeping with the zoning ordinances of Summit. This house was built long before zoning ordinances came into effect in the 1920s, 30s in New Jersey. So we are dealing with a house itself that's very close to the street if you look at the neighborhood. And also if you look at the neighborhood overhead, you'll see that quite a few of the lots in this neighborhood have larger outbuildings, especially across the street. Number 32, and I believe it's 30, they have significant structures in the backyard already. Also, if you look in the pictures I submitted, there's a lot viewing towards the south. There's the garage is in the middle of the backyard. Now, moving the garage forward would reduce the lot coverage violation, but putting the garage in the middle of the yard isn't very productive or good for this homeowner or any other future homeowner and would diminish the value of this property. So by doing this extension to the garage, we're trying to improve the property, give storage that is absent in the house, and also keep up the value of the lot and help this homeowner as well as any other future homeowner. I think I covered quite a bit of what we're looking at here.
And just Mr. Majewski, before we move on, admittedly, I'm struggling a little bit here. Perhaps it's just because it's the first meeting of the year. But when it comes to the D variance and just helping us understand kind of the positive and the negative criteria involved, I'm searching for kind of a clear positive criteria for granting this garage. And believe me, I'm jealous just looking at the plan for it. It looks like a gorgeous garage. But in terms of a positive benefit, to the community, could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, the benefits to the community are if we keep the garage at and try to meet the one car requirement for the zone, we're essentially forcing homeowners to keep more cars in the driveway. And that's never seen as a benefit, especially if they're in the rear yard, which this is fully in the rear yard, this garage. It's not likely to kind of, and we're also trying to make it so that their cars don't park up near the house in the driveway. So I see there's a great benefit in that we maintain keeping cars in the garage as a full-time, and most families these days would have at least 2 cars, and sometimes when older children get cars, there's other cars. So we don't want to start filling up the driveway with multiple cars. We feel that this would keep cars in the backyard away from the houses that are on either side, and we think that would be a positive benefit.
And it's your belief, I assume, I don't want to necessarily assume, because of the proximity to the playground area, the public properties to the rear, that the impact of this larger structure would not be negative on any of the neighboring properties. I'm thinking light, sound, air.
That's correct. The garage will give the same visible size to the property in the back, as we're just pulling the same shape and size and pulling it actually away from the property line. That way we can maintain it in the back, so it's not hard to paint or fix or repair anything on the back. So it's a vertical footprint to the back property is maintaining the way it is now, but farther from the property line. I don't feel it'll have any negative impact on the playground itself, if anything better. We're not putting any windows back there.
Okay. And then just for my notes, are there any particular hardships you'd want to call out for this lot? Is it undersized for the zone? Anything to that effect?
The lot isn't. I wouldn't say that the lot isn't undersized. It's an existing 7,500 square foot lot. I believe there's a 5,000 square foot lot, which is actually a very small lot to be developed. So the fact that the garage is so far back is a benefit to the neighbors, that it's pushed away from the other houses, but it's a negative in the way it was originally constructed, because it adds so much coverage to the lot. So we're not actually adding or maintaining that. We're actually going to take out about 100 square feet. And I see that as a benefit of reducing the lot coverage.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Dower, to jump in before you. I couldn't resist. You have a number of questions for Mr. Majewski?
Not really. As you noted, that there's a 98 square foot reduction in the impervious coverage. And the only comment that we had, because it really does not require any stormwater improvements, we would just ask that the leaders or the downspouts be directed, not be directed towards neighboring properties.
We could achieve that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
And I did know in your report that it said if any thing was encountered in the future with problems, it would definitely be addressed. I believe that was your a comment 11.
Correct.
And we'll include
that would be a condition of approval.
Right. We'll include acceptance of the engineer's letter and all of the points therein as a condition of the application, if that's acceptable to Mr. Bowden.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Questions, further questions from members of the board?
I had a question, just that street is fairly densely built. And I didn't know if in putting this together, you had a sense of whether neighbors had also gone over FAR, do we know? Because I just got the sense that everything was built out about as far as it could. I realize
Yeah.
all the other kids are doing it is not quite a convincing argument. But if it's fairly common in the neighborhood, that suggests that, other neighbors have been successful.
Yeah, like I said, if you look at the aerial views of the street, it's very easy to tell. It's a very built up street. There's down towards is it Broad Street? What's the main street at the end?
Morris.
Morris Avenue. There's a lot of parking lot area, Marco Polo restaurants down there. As you go around the curve away from that, past my homeowner's house, you end up in the fields of the school, and that becomes a little less built. But up to the fields, this is a very built up site with a lot of paving. Like I said, there's outbuildings in the back. I would assume that all these buildings are at the max or over the floor area ratio, and there may not be variance issues for some of them because some of the outbuildings I could see from observing them are old. They may have been there a long time before the floor area ratio came into effect in Summit.
So from your observation of the neighboring properties in the neighborhood, would you say the massing on the property and the density being built up here is consistent with other properties in the area?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
An interesting thing that I noted that if we were able to have the 2-car garages as an exemption, because the ordinance in the other zones call for a 2-car garage being exempted up to 576 square feet. We're only allowed a disallowance of half that amount in the zone. But I did happen to look at it and says, well, what if we could get an allowance for the whole, which is the existing, the 2-car garage? We would actually be compliant with floor area ratio if we were allowed to exempt the existing second bay of the garage, as in a couple other zones. And I thought that was an interesting way to look at possibly considering the floor area ratio not a serious violation in this particular lot, in this particular street.
Mr. Majewski, any further questions from the board?
One quickie. We received photographs earlier today of the property. Are they going to be introduced for any reason, or should we just be ignoring them? And if they aren't, what are we doing with them?
They're part of what I felt you would want to see that were clear related to what I've been talking about. We can introduce them if you want, and then I can talk about them. I think, they're helpful to understand with the items I've been talking about.
I was looking at the front of the house and noticed that it's very, very close to the other houses on either side of it. For 3 or 4 houses, are setbacks considerably more than this one. And I'm assuming it has something to do with the age of it. We can't really tell what part of it is the 1895 anymore. And maybe that loses your exemption for that because somebody did such a great job modernizing it. But, maybe
let's take a moment.
Explain that.
Yeah, let's take a moment. We can introduce them. Chris, do you have them handy so you can pull up? Or Mr. Majewski, whomever wants to.
I can bring them up.
Okay.
I can share my screen.
And then we would introduce them as what, A1, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
And we need to verify when they were taken.
Yeah, some but not all of them are part of the original application dated November 10th.
Yes, I submitted them because I felt they were a little bit clearer than the application I tried to get to you originally.
Mm-hmm.
So just to clarify to Chris's question, when were these taken?
I'd have to look at the exact date, but I took them personally, I believe, in the summertime. this past summer 2020.
Okay, so if you can just take a few moments and walk us through them, and then Joe, if you had any specific questions you want to highlight, or really anyone, please.
Okay. These are a group of photos that I took personally of the property, and I was hoping that they would illustrate some of the items that I've been presenting to you. They're labeled A through J, and they're labeled with the direction they view. So the first A and B are basically photos of the existing garage from the driveway, showing the cars looking back towards the school property. Then the item C is looking from the face of the garage. You can see the car there, and I'm looking back at the existing house. You can see the rear wall, and on the right side, there's a blank piece of siding. That's where the stair to the basement is, that actually steps down from this internally in the house. If you look at D, it says view to the south towards lots 18, 19, and 20. You can see shed structures there, a garage, 2 lots over. And then if you look at item E, that's looking the opposite way from me standing with my back to the garage. And you can see an outbuilding in the next property in the backyard. And then you could actually see a house farther down the street, which is set way back from the street. So if you looked at the streetscape, I believe that's the last house before the curve in the school. F is just a closer view of that back of the house. And you can see it has a couple odd shapes on the top. I'm not sure how that was designed originally there, but it is fully finished in there. If you look at G, it's just another view. You can see the patio that was put in at one time. H is look at the side of the house, and you can see the front used to be an open porch at some point that was annexed into the house. So that was probably open in 1895, and some of that is part of the crawl space in the basement, so I couldn't really, and it looked like it's very old original structure. I is standing at the front of the driveway looking back towards the garage, and you can see a shed building on the adjacent property to the south. And item G just gives a little better view of the patio and the garage area. And I only submitted those for hoping to understand the property in case anybody didn't get there to see this. I did not know how the weather was going to be as it approached the time of this meeting. And it might have been covered with snow.
No, we appreciate that and encourage, frankly, all applications to provide photographs. So thank you very much for doing this. Joe, did you have any specific questions you wanted to follow up with on these photos?
Just about the setback, and I'm not sure that he has an answer or the property owner has an answer.
So the other 2 houses on either side of us, their garages are on the front. And so one of the reasons I think their houses were set back is because that's the length of their whole driveway, and that's how the house was set back. So that's why their house is a little bit farther back. My house itself, the garage was always detached, and I think it originally was kind of set in a closer proximity because of that.
It looks like those other houses were built around the 1960s, is my guess. They're raised ranches.
But their house also, I think both of their houses come back to maybe a little bit farther than my house does. So from the back side, we're almost all in alignment still.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, wonderful. Any other questions from the board? All right, hearing and seeing none. Any questions from the public? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Mr. Bowden, do you have anything further? I believe that was your only witness, if I'm correct.
Correct. I just appreciate everybody's time to take a look at the application, and we're really looking forward to living in Summit.
Excellent. All right, so with that, we can transition to our executive session. Mr. Ball, would you just remind us of the conditions that have been raised for this application?
Sure. The only one I have is compliance with the conditions noted in the engineer's report.
A good one. Okay. Who'd like to kick us off? Mr. Mullen, you were spot on with one good question there. So what, if you want to start us with a deliberation?
Sure, I'm supportive of this application. I think, first of all, it renders a benefit clearly to the applicant to have the convenience of the garage and the greater storage space and vehicle space, but it also does get a car off the street. I think it's within character of the neighborhood, is fairly unobtrusive, so I'm okay with it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mullen. I'd love to hear the perspective of an architect. Mr. Loikitz, do you have an opinion on this?
If we only knew of one on this board. I would agree with David. I think this is an entirely reasonable request. We're talking about variances that are happening at the back of the property. And I think the architects handled it well. It looks pretty straightforward to me, so I would be supportive of this application as well.
Excellent. Any further comments?
Yeah, just note that I support it for all the reasons already stated, and that there's a reduction in lot coverage, which is a positive too. So all the work is in the back. It's not going to affect the front of the house or the look from the house. So I can support it too.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Barring any further comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the application with the conditions as noted earlier. Any takers?
Also move to approve.
Excellent. Any second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Loikitz. Chris? Come off mute first, though, for me. Thank you.
They finally got me. Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes. All right, thank you, Mr. Bodwin. Thank you, Mr. Majewski.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank you very much.
All right, we've been going for a little while here. Maybe we'll take a quick 5-minute break, go stretch our legs. Sorry, Mr. Wallen.
Okay.
I know you're eager to go, but let's give us a quick 5 minutes and we'll come back fresh for you. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
This is their
Get Chris and Scott back, and then we'll kick off. There's Chris, Mr. Millay, Mr. Leukitz, Mr. Millay. Come on, Mr. Millay. Let's see, 1, 2. So we want our 7th board member here.
No, you should have 7 anyway.
Or 7 anyways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There may be, I may need to recuse. I'm not sure.
Then you won't have 7.
Are you going to recuse, Joe, or sorry?
Well, there's a name on this screen that if they're going to testify, I'm going to have to go.
Oh, there he is. Welcome back, Mr. Millay. All right. Michelle, you're good?
Yep.
All right. All right, we are back in session. Just Mr. Steiner, before we proceed, would you disclose this this person is?
Yeah,
Is Ms. Hogue?
Christy Hottie, what? Christy, are you on here, or are you planning to participate in this case? Because if you are, I need to.
I'm using my iPad. Ed Reeves is actually listening in.
Okay.
And I think in this case, now putting that all together with the letter that I think somebody sent us earlier, I will need to recuse.
Okay. All right. Mr. Steiner is recused in this case.
So as I can tell you, I'm not, there are no resolutions, and I wasn't at the December 7th meeting. Good night.
Bye, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks for playing. All right, let's proceed. Thank you, Mr. Wallen, for your patience. We will begin. This is 66 Fernwood Road, and this is Mr. Carl Wallen. Mr. Wallen, I don't believe you're represented by an attorney, so we're just going to swear you in and then offer you the opportunity to summarize your application for us.
Thank you.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Carl Walling, Wallin.
Great. Thank you. And before we proceed with your application, I did just want to note, as a preliminary matter, there was some email correspondence from counsel for one of the neighbors, as well as the applicant and their engineer. I believe, and I will note this condition for the record, I believe everyone's in agreement that the application will proceed with this condition, but it was that any drainage of the pool other than common maintenance shall be directed into the stormwater culvert at the base of the applicant's property over the driveway. So, Mr. Wallen, is that acceptable to you to proceed with that condition?
Yes, absolutely. That was what we had planned initially.
Perfect. All right, you may proceed with the application.
Great, thank you. And I also just want to thank the board for taking the time to review our request. And if I may, just really briefly, give a shout out to Chris and Nicola and your whole team. And I know he doesn't vote, so I can say a few nice things here, but I'm just not used to the level of service and attention that your team gives us. You know, you call, people pick up the phone. It's just, you know, a refreshing surprise and truly appreciate it. I just want to pass that along to everybody. I live with my wife and my 2 boys. They're 5 and 7 here on 66 Fernwood Road. It's just by Beacon Road, if you know the street. It's block 2201, lot 20 to be exact. We've lived there for 3 years. We really enjoy the town. We love the town. The schools, our oldest goes to Lincoln Hubbard, which is a really fantastic place. Not to bore you too much, we actually moved out from the city 5 years ago, moved to Short Hills, and then quickly realized that there was a town of Summit, which was more in line with what we like. We love to walk to the town, and you know, where there's some restaurants and where there's actually a beautiful town. So we, 2 years later moved here. We could, throw our belongings across the highway and ended up here on Fernwood Road, which we think is really a great street and love it. The year has obviously been a difficult one for all of us, but I think we're also fortunate to be in a place like this, where we can walk around. But our decision, we've been contemplating a pool for quite a while, and this sort of pushed that decision to become a firm one. So when we started to looking into the details, we realized, to our surprise, that we needed a variance. And I think anybody who looks at our property, especially in the back, it's a large, at least in my terms, it's a large flat piece of land, which when you look at it, there's certainly a lot of space to put a pool, and also plenty of space to still have, a lawn where the kids can put up their soccer goals and all of that. But what hurts our numbers is there's a circular driveway in the front, and there is a detached garage all the way down the back, which requires a driveway. And we looked into the options actually initially, if there was something we could do there. The driveway isn't really that wide to begin with, and there are some rules on that. You need to have a driveway and things like that. And in the front, the circular driveway is surrounded by stone walls that are as old as the house, 100 years or so. And I don't think it would be a good idea to remove that. So to request a variance was really our only option to be able to make this project work. Allowable coverage here, as I'm sure you know, is 30%. We bought the house as is today. It was already at 31%. And what we're requesting is 36.8% to allow for minimal walks, patio, what we need around the pool. And to be very clear there, I mean, I have 2 boys, and to have sanity in the house, they need to run out on the lawn, do as much sports as possible, which I enjoy as well. So we're really trying to keep it to a minimum here, so to not lose that. So that's certainly our intention. As the discussion here early on, we have had comments from one of our neighbors, which we've solved just as you pointed out, and that really wasn't an issue for us. And that's it. We really hope that you're going to be supportive of this, and I'm happy to answer any questions now or later. Our engineer Kathy, who I think you've spoken to many times before, is on the call, and we'll look at some of the details.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Wallen. I think I observed in the Google Maps footage, the satellite images, an inflatable pool. So I can see this is a pressing concern for your sons.
I noticed that. The Google snapped that, actually, yes.
That's pretty funny. Well done. Mr. Dower, any questions for the applicant? Otherwise, we'll slowly entertain Ms. Muller's testimony.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Any questions from the board for the applicant? And any questions?
I have a question here.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Mr. Millay.
Where are you going to place the equipment, pool equipment?
So if you look at the plan, the pool equipment is to be located right to the left of the house. Currently, there's an AC unit there marked on the plan. And right in this area, we're going to have the equipment fenced in and as per requirements.
Yeah, but they are not shown on the plan, right?
That is correct. And I believe Kathy will go through this. For some reason that wasn't entered initially. We've had a few comments about that, and that will certainly be in the plan for before we proceed.
Thank you.
Further questions from members of the board for the applicant? And then any questions from members of the public for the applicant, knowing that we're going to hear testimony from the engineer? Okay, you're hearing none. Ms. Muller, Mr. Ball, would you mind swearing her in?
You swear or affirm that the testimony given this matters the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Then please state your name, spell your last name.
Catherine with a C, Muller, M-U-E-L-L-E-R.
Thank you. And would you briefly go through your background, experience, and 3 boards that you've appeared before recently, aside from some?
Sure. I'm the president of Page Muller Engineering, located in Warren Township, New Jersey. I have my Bachelor of Science in Civil and Environmental Engineering from Clarkson University. I'm a registered professional engineer in good standing in the state of New Jersey. And I think I was in front of this board either in December or November. It was pretty recently. But other boards in the area that I've presented in front of are New Providence, Berkeley Heights, Warren, Watchung, Summit, to name a few.
I imagine the board would like to accept your credentials at this point.
Thank you.
We will. Welcome back, Ms. Muller. I do remember you from some months ago, but welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Elm Street.
There you go.
I want to say thank you, Carl. I'll get you a job because you did a nice job presenting our application here. You saved me some time. As Mr. Wallen pointed out, the existing conditions on this property actually exceed the allowable impervious by a small amount, approximately 300 square feet, due to the driveways. So when he first came to our office, we said, no problem, we'll do a pool plot plan. We started looking at the properties and we identified the variance. And here we are tonight. We want to put in a pool. He would like to construct a pool in the rear yard. This will result in an increase in coverage of 1,834 square feet, which brings our coverage, as stated, up to 36.8%. This approximately 1,800 square feet of increase impervious includes the water surface of the pool. The pool that's proposed is 964 square feet. So more than half of what we're proposing as an increase is the water surface. We've minimized the patio around the pool to 3 to 4 feet, and we have a 10-foot patio at the end. This will allow for circulation all around the pool for maintenance and also for safety. You have a change of texture versus lawn to pool around the pool area and the water surface. And the 10 feet is what we typically propose for a minimum to have lounge chairs and be able to safely walk by it in between the lounge chairs and the pool. We've only done minimal connections to the slate patio. We're proposing some steps that just go to a lawn area. We did not hardscape all around. Again, we really tried to focus and minimize the variance that we're asking for tonight. We have proposed stormwater management. If I can share my screen here. We have 2 different systems. So what we have here are the plans that were submitted to the board. I have 2 different stormwater systems proposed. And from history, my computer may freeze up with the sharing. So I just want to hit on this quickly. I have a dry well in the rear and what I'm calling an infiltration trench around the perimeter of the patio. We've sized these to collect 3 inches over the increase in impervious with exception to the pool water. Some towns exempt the pool water, as you do have freeboard between the water surface elevation and the coping to contain stormwater. The city of Summit has a more stringent requirement where they require stormwater management for the pool surface as well. I had the benefit to speak to your board engineer prior to this hearing, just to clarify a few points. And during that conversation, I agreed with his comment that we will increase the stormwater management that we're proposing on the site to allow for the capacity for the full increase of the 1,800 square feet, 1,834 square feet of storage in these 2 systems. We also talked about the potential of tying them together. And my preference is to leave them as separate systems so that if the system does exceed the 3 inches of storage, we're not concentrating all of the improvements in one point of overflow. The infiltration trench around the decking of the pool will almost work as a level spreader. Anything that surges out will have the ability to run overland, and we'll still end up in the same area of the dry well and the inlet that exists in front of the driveway today, but it'll allow it to slow down seep into the grass a little bit before it gets recollected. So that's the general gist of how we laid this out, how we minimize the walkway around it. There were some comments. Number one, we've already touched on the location of the pool equipment. We're proposing it to the left of the house where the existing AC condenser is. It will comply with the setbacks, will comply with the required buffering around it. Another item that was mentioned is the fence. The property is surrounded, I'll say surrounded by fence. Some of this is located on the applicant's property. Some of it's located on the adjacent properties. Per the pool code, the whole pool needs to be enclosed with a compliant fence on the applicant's property. In talking to Mr. Whalen, they've had pools in their past homes, former homes. What we're going to be proposing to do, if the board looks favorable upon this application tonight, is to fence in the pool area. Rather than fence in the whole property, we will have a compliant fence just around the pool. And that will eliminate the need to fence in the entire property. He can maintain the fence across the driveway as it exists today. So we would be happy to have that as a condition of approval should this move forward. That was one of the questions that or one of the comments that were made. We already touched on that we had already agreed for the maintenance of the pool. Sometimes you have to draw the water down significantly. We will agree as a condition, and I'll add a note to the plans, that any excessive discharge from the pool will be directed either out to Fernwood Road or the inlet as discussed, and not run overland to our neighbor, Mr. Reeves, who lives at lot 14, which is to the northwest of our property. There was also a comment that was raised in the engineer's letter asking if we were proposing a generator. We do not have a generator proposed on our plans, but with the recent storms, Mr. Whalen and his family have been considering getting a full house generator. Right now, they're using the portable, pull it out of your garage, put gas in it, keep your fridge cold. In the event that they do decide to move forward with this other, improvement to their property, it would be a result in increase in impervious coverage. We're here tonight for an impervious coverage variance. We're exceeding the allowable by 2,133 square feet. If we anticipate that pad to be at most 20 square feet, which is very large, probably be half of that, but I don't want to have a number that's too small and require to come back for another adjusted variance. But per my testimony tonight, we would like to amend our application for the impervious coverage variance from 36.8% to 36.9%. We are just on the cusp of that percent, so I would like to just discuss that with the board, put that out there if anybody has any questions. But to amend it per my testimony today and request 36.9% for a coverage variance solely for the inclusion of a generator pad for future.
Where would the generator be located on the property?
We haven't cited that yet. I would assume that would also be over by the equipment, the mechanicals, the AC, the generator, and the pool equipment on the left of the property. The utilities are obviously there to feed the AC condensers. The plumbing and the electrical will be fed to the pool equipment in that area, and then also have the generator.
Could you describe, I just would raise one concern that kind of pops up to me, is that sounds like an awful noisy corner of the home. Not that necessarily a generator and a pool equipment and an AC are all running at one time, but you have any insights you could offer us as to the sound impact, given its location, relatively adjacent to the neighboring property?
Sure, I'll give you my information that I know. Typically, you will not be running all of these equipment with the generator. The pool equipment, with some of the pool companies working with now, we've actually had this conversation very recently that the new equipment tends to be quieter than an AC condenser. Usually, so that's a non-issue. And then the generator, we know they're noisy. The newer ones for the full house will be more quiet than a gas-powered one that's out in the driveway running. So again, I don't see that as a potential harm to the neighbor. It's only going to be used, the generator will only be used in times of emergency, probably be drowned out by everybody else's in the neighborhood as well. And again, the pool equipment, from my understanding from all the contractors we're working with, they're fairly silent. So it wouldn't aggravate the noise from the AC condenser as well.
I want to pose a question to Mr. Ball on this topic. I'm wondering if, amending the application on the fly creates a notice issue here for folks in the neighborhood.
I think it's substantially the same application. It is pretty much a de minimis increase in the overall lot coverage that they are proposing. It's not unlike prior applications where a potential variance has come up on the fly and the board can consider and adjust accordingly. So I don't see that necessarily as an issue. Here we can proceed if the board was so inclined to grant that request.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Mr. Dower, do you have any comments or thoughts, relevant thoughts?
To the generator, I think that's rather than the applicant having to come back before the board, it makes sense to do that at the same time. As Ms. Muller mentioned, that we did have a conversation regarding the pool, the increase in coverage for the water portion of the pool, and because that is a summer requirement. So that's where we came into agreement to expand the proposed dry well to accommodate that. And then I have no objection to keeping the infiltration trench separate from that because that is, as she noted, will accommodate any runoff directly from the pool patio. Any overflow from the pool, they mentioned, will be addressed because of the concerns from the neighbor. So at this time, I really have no other comments. I did mention a few things as far as the location of the seepage pit from the property line, which we discussed. There's also discussion about the fencing, and they've addressed that as well as the pool equipment. So I think all of my comments have been addressed.
I have a question about the generator though. Are we sure there would not be a variance needed for the location of the generator, aside from also obviously the lot coverage, but are we sure that's a permissible location?
We're not granting them any variances for the placement of the generator. So at the moment, all we're doing is allowing for the increase in impervious coverage or lot coverage rather. And then the applicant would have to comply with any ordinances that apply to the location, any ordinances that require noise limitations. So those would all have to be complied with. If at some later date they want a variance from those location requirements, they would have to come back before the board.
Okay, I've just asked that we also add our standard standard condition about when the testing of the generator can do.
We don't actually need that anymore because in the recent DRO, it was implemented into the code. So testing requirements are now in there. We don't need to impose it as a condition.
Okay, good.
So Andy, just on the point for the generator again. So I'll agree that the proposed increase in lot coverage is relatively de minimis. I am a little concerned about the location. So if, granted they're not proposing to put it into an area that would trigger a side yard setback variance, for example, but if we grant them the ability to increase this impervious coverage, they could place it anywhere conceivably on the lot. Is that correct?
As long as it complies with all the setback requirements.
And so that could be in the left side, the right side. I'm just worrying about, it gives them maybe a little bit more latitude. Not that I think they'll abuse it to the detriment of their neighbors, but I would feel a little bit better knowing where it's going. And Ms. Muller or Mr. The applicant here this evening, if you'd like to stipulate that it would be located on that left side. I just want to make sure we kind of we're understanding the impact that this would have, especially to the sound for the neighbors.
No, I absolutely understand. And I mean, we don't have a generator and we hear the music of generators when it happens here around the town.
Right.
6 months ago or so, we had a couple of trees fall in front of the house that took down the power and things like that. So it just became a thing. And when I was talking to Kathy and I sort of mentioned it, at some point we're probably considering to put in a generator. You know, this was a bit of a last minute thing. Oh, we should, and she brought it up with the town and they suggested you should put it in at the same time. I'm happy to remove it from the application at this point if it's something that complicates it. Although I do think at some point, my wife is going to be on my case and say that, you know, we need to have one. And then I might be asking for more of your time. So I'm happy to put this anywhere that the ordinance requires in any way and put that as a condition or any way to make it possible that you include that in the application today. And if you prefer to remove it from the application entirely, I'm okay with that as well. And we'll deal with it some other time.
Thankfully, thankfully the 5-minute break rejuvenated me mentally and physically. So I'm happy to go through the exercise of including it in the application. I think it's, Mr. Wan, I think it's smart to get it done tonight. I just want to make sure we're, to Mr. Mullen's point, given that the neighboring properties weren't noticed, didn't maybe anticipate this impact as well, that, we're giving it its due diligence. Sure. So, I mean, I would welcome any further comments from the board. For me, I'm personally, without going too far into deliberations, I'm comfortable with the addition of this lot coverage. The location's probably just important for me in a general sense. So we can anticipate in our own executive session, what the likely impact would be on the neighboring properties.
Yeah, I mean, as Mr. Ball noted, they have to put it in a conforming location or they have to come back, so as long as they understand that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Would you be amenable to us saying that we will put it on the left side of the house where the plumbing and the electrical and the other equipment is tonight? I think we could be in agreement with that. We'll respect all the setbacks as per the city code.
Would make me feel better, but anyone else have an opinion? I've been talking too much.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that too. I shared the concern you had, Steve. It wasn't necessarily with the additional impervious coverage, but potentially a non-conforming location. But if they have to be in conformance with the required setbacks, then that's fine with me.
It's on the left side. Is that a fireplace by the AC? Like, what is that? Like a chimney or something?
Yes, correct. It's a chimney.
Okay.
There's a fireplace on the inside there.
And it would go in front of the chimney?
It would. It's actually a fireplace that's not being used. So it's an unused chimney.
Okay.
The only other question I would raise with it, Ms. Mueller, is so given now there's air conditioning, there's pool equipment and a generator there. I assume you would landscape screen with respect to all of those different mechanical units?
Per the city code, the pool equipment needs to be screened by a fence or a wall. I did try to find that in the code. If maybe Mr. Doer could just confirm how high those need to be for the screening, if we were to put a fence or shrubbery around it. I didn't find that criteria, but we're happy to satisfy whatever that is.
And Mr. Dower, I mean, I would be comfortable, proposing as a condition, a landscaping plan, right, that allows Ms. Mueller the opportunity to go and inspect the DRO, but then also potentially, consult with Mr. Linson to ensure that there is sufficient density to screening to address any noise issues.
But I would say that they would be conditioned on meeting the ordinance as far as screening and noise, and then as well as any recommendations from the city forester for screening.
So Ms. Mueller, that's a pretty common condition. Gives you an opportunity to look into the DRO and then talk with Mr. Linson as well, just to get his opinion to what might be most suitable.
We could certainly provide some evergreens on that side. Talk to Mr. Linson. He was out on the site and met with Mr. Wallen already. Just to note, we aren't removing any trees for the project. And he was satisfied with what was out there already and wasn't requiring any additional. But we'd be happy to put some evergreens along that property line due to the location of the equipment.
Oh, absolutely. And he was also happy with the existing screening. So but regardless, we will naturally cover it up, and that's certainly in our interest to do.
Yeah, well, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very, very much for working with us on that. That's the give and take we're looking for.
Oh, sure.
Wonderful.
The forester also wanted to plant some trees in the front, and I was happy to hear that, and we agreed on that.
Excellent. Sorry, Ms. Mueller. Anything further either on that or any other testimony you'd like to introduce?
I don't have anything further. If you have some questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any further questions regarding the application? Mr. Dower, anything else you would like to raise?
No, I think every question's been answered. Thank you.
Yep. Any questions from members of the board?
I had a question. Ms. Mueller, you began saying, or you and the homeowner, so much of what's already there gets you over the lot limit. Do you know what the square footage of the Horseshoe Drive is?
Specifically in the front, I don't have that segregated out. We just counted on all his driveway.
Okay.
Want to go any further, Claire? Do you want to propose the
No.
removal of a circular driveway?
No,
Come
I
on.
certainly don't. But I mean, if what's there already puts them over the limit, it's just sort of, if it weren't there, where would you be?
Okay. No, that's fine. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions from members of the board? All right. Any questions from members of the public? This is just questions at this moment. Just a question for Ms. Mueller. Any questions for her?
Well, I have a question about the drainage for the project,
Okay,
because
would you
I see it
please just
going
state
into
sorry, would you just please state your name and your address just for the record?
Andrea Kilby at 19 Oxbow Lane.
Excellent. Thank you. Please, your question.
I have a problem with the drainage because Oxbow has a big problem with drainage from all the different things that have been happening. So is this water going into the storm drain going to find its way out to Oxbow? Because he had spoken about Mr. Reeves, and if you go down Oxbow now, between Mr. Reeves and I don't know the name of the person next to him, that's all filled with ice. Where I am, I have ice as well, but I'm hoping with the drainage that's going to be happening with the new house next door to me, part of that problem is going to be taken care of. But Oxbow has a big water problem because we're at the bottom of the hill.
What I could do is, if I shared my screen again real quick here, I had, just make sure I'm looking at the right property here. We received the town topo from the city that we show the surrounding area to our property. Our property is centered here in the middle. The house sits on a knoll, and I could see where Mr. Reeves has a problem. Even on the town topo, they identify a depression on his whole side yard next to his house. From the property owners list, Ms. Kilby, I believe you live in lot 10 over here. You're actually...
I think I'm further over than that. It's Reeves, Brody, I don't know their name, Marty, and then me.
Right, on the property list, John and Andrea Kilby at 19 Oxbow. So that is this lot. We're not draining to that. It's at a higher elevation. I understand that some water may come through here and come down to the road to Oxbow, but we're not draining in the direction of your property. And as I stated before, the stormwater management for the city of Summit is quite stringent for a pool. The pool surface itself is going to hold water. You will not have runoff from that pool surface until we get a catastrophic storm greater than 6 or 8 inches. And I designed for 8.3 inches for a 100-year storm. So the chances of the pool overflowing would be a very significant storm. Once in 100 years is the probability. So your average storms would be contained within that pool surface area, would produce no runoff. Although if it did produce runoff, my stormwater management will be designed to catch the first 3 inches of it. So I can confidently tell you that the installation of this pool will actually reduce the runoff for smaller storms from the property. Will you see an improvement on Oxbow? I can't tell you that. We analyzed the one lot, and it's my job to ensure that we don't have any detrimental effects on the surrounding neighbors. Stormwater is a hot point. I've been doing it for years, and this is a stringent requirement of Summit. So I don't see this having a negative impact on your property.
It's not my, I'm concerned of truthfully all of Oxbow because I have seen it change over 44 years of living here, and it hasn't gotten better. It's gotten a lot worse.
It's actually, there's new ordinance that they're increasing the stormwater management every year. It changes and gets more stringent. So again, we do have a full stormwater management proposed for this property. Again, it's not going to solve your project or your issues on Oxbow. Perhaps you can talk to the town engineer separately. But we're doing what we can on the site to mitigate what we're proposing here.
Thank you, Ms. Kilby. Good question. Any other questions from members of the public? All right, seeing none. And then Mr. Wallen, I believe that Ms. Muller was your only witness for your case. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So Ms. Kilby, you appear to be the only member of the public. Is there anything you'd like to say, just statements generally regarding this application? And you certainly don't have to.
I don't want him to think I have a problem with the pool. What I'm mostly concerned with is the runoff, because I have seen the water change over the number of years I've been living here.
Okay.
I'm very understanding of that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both. All right. Wonderful. Mr. Wallen, anything you'd like to say in closing before the board enters their deliberation?
No. Thank you for your time. Thanks for the detailed analysis, and again, the help from the town has really made this happen.
Wonderful. Okay, Mr. Ball, you're up. Tell us all the conditions.
I've got 5 of them. The first is the usual compliance with the conditions noted in the engineer's report. The second is, as previously noted, any drainage of the pool other than common maintenance shall be directed into the stormwater culvert at the base of the applicant's property over the driveway. Condition number 3 is that the applicant will install a fence around the pool area as required by ordinance. Condition number 4 is the applicant shall comply with the exterior mechanical equipment screening requirements and shall submit a landscaping plan to the city forester for review and approval. And the 5th, I do want to confirm with the board, but I had noted that any future generator installation shall be located on the left side of the house and comply with all setback requirements and screening requirements. And I did just want to check, do we want to confirm that it's on the left side of the house there, or do we want to leave it open as long as it complies with setback and location requirements?
I am personally more comfortable with that restriction, just because I feel like we deliberated around, what we thought the likely impact would be. I welcome comments from other board members. Don't mean to tie your hands, Mr. Wallen, here, but.
Well, from what the engineer said, that's really where all the hookups are for it. So
yeah,
it would take an awful lot to place it somewhere else. It seems that's the natural place, so let's all agree on it.
Okay, then I will leave it as noted on the left side of the house.
Thank you. All right. Who would like to kick off the deliberations? Mr. Mullen gets a pass. He did a good job last time. Mr. Yuko, would you like to start?
Okay. I normally, pools kind of raise red flags for me because it's, it's really something that's a need or hardship, whatever. But I think they've addressed this as best they can. I like that condition we're adding about where the pool drainage is going to go. So I'm inclined to support it.
Okay. Further comment from the board? Pro or con? Scott or Iman, I see you guys down there looking like you want to jump out of your screen. Anything? Okay, I won't force your hands. I'll join Tom in saying that I certainly do recognize that the stormwater management considerations for the site are especially thoughtful and should, if anything, positively impact what is an area that obviously has some ongoing stormwater management issues. I appreciate the effort to address the fencing, as has ultimately where we ultimately landed with that. I think it's a better, safer solution. It makes me feel, frankly, better from a safety perspective, in terms of not just for Mr. Wall and Sons, but for the any neighboring children that may wander into the area, because I do have some sensitivity around the safety for pools. And then appreciate you humoring the deliberation around the mechanical equipment. I think it's smart to incorporate that in the application today. I think that the inclusion of a landscape plan is going to be helpful in addressing any potentially negative impact to sound, especially, given the concentration of, those 3 mechanical units. So with that all together, I think this is well thought of. Thank you, Ms. Muller, for contacting Mr. Dower. Thank you, Mr. Wallen, for your flexibility. And thank you, board, for your good deliberation today. And I can certainly support the application. Anyone care to motion to approve?
So move to approve.
In a second?
Second.
All right, Chris?
All right, Vice Chairwoman Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Mullins,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
and Chairman Spur.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Ms. Muller. Congratulations, Mr. Wallen. Go wake up your boys in the morning and tell them the pool's on its way.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. And then board members, we just need to approve minutes for December 7th, and then you're released.
Yeah, no resolutions today, just minutes. December 7th, 2020. Would somebody like to move those?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And seeing none.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good night.
All right, good
Good
night.
night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.